The description of this panel says in part that conservatism stands for tradition, high culture, social order, and moderation, none of which jive well with the populist passions of the moment. And I think that this is a very widespread conception of conservatism, particularly among its many detractors, who always like to find whichever standard is most inconvenient to conservatives around today. I have this penchant for following these arguments about how there's a wide body of literature among liberals out there. Sam Tannenhouse is the leader of this group these days, who seem to practice the belief that the only good conservative is a dead conservative. By which I mean the second conservatives die, be it Barry Goldwater, Ronald Reagan, William F. Buckley, Irving Kristol, all of a sudden these guys would be so disappointed in what conservatives today are doing. Now, why couldn't we just have the conservatism of Barry Goldwater, which you hear all over the place? And that's one of the reasons I love this Rand Paul thing, right? Is because finally there's actually a Goldwaterite out there, and the second one emerges and takes the bait of trying to be Goldwaterite. Liberals, have to flee to their fainting couches in horror at, the sight of an actual Goldwaterite. Regardless, this idea that somehow there's this healthy tension between the idea that there's this contradiction between conservatism and populism, I don't think is right.
What I've known about grassroots activists is that they are first, in fact, people who are devoted to big ideas. And when you take a look at today's large groundswell of spontaneous grassroots activism called the Tea Party, the great big idea to which they are devoted is called the Constitution of the United States. And you have to take the measure of the degree to which they adore the Constitution, not only for its moral and political correctness. That is, our Constitution gets it correct.
I had the great privilege of addressing the 9/12 March on Washington, organized by Freedom Works. And I know the New York Times said there were just a few thousand people down on the National Mall that day. Fox News Channel said there were 1 billion. But I'll never forget walking out. My family lives here in Washington, D.C. with me, so my daughter had a cross-country meet. And I told Karen, this is a true story, Dick, I told Karen that morning, she said, what do we got going today? And I said, well, big Army call, they're doing something down on the National Mall, I'm gonna run down, and do that. So we go to the cross-country meet, and then we had a family picnic later in the day. So we drove down and didn't even glance over at the National Mall. I thought, with Dick involved, there'd be a good number, 10, 20,000 people down there, and it'd be a good thing for the cause. And we parked on the east front of the Capitol building, because I get free parking over there. And we walked through the Capitol building that day. I got my wife and my 2 daughters with me. We come out the west front of the Capitol where the president comes on State of the Union. And I'm holding a little few remarks. I come walking out. It was 2 hours before the event started. And as God is my witness, I walked out, and what I saw in that crowd was a larger crowd than 2 out of the 3 presidential inaugurations. It was the most inspiring thing I've ever seen in my life. And my knees locked. My wife had to, she looked over at me and she gave me one of those touch on the elbow, it's going to be okay, just stick to your speech, honey, things. And we walked down, and it was an amazing place to see. It was literally cheek to jowl, a sea of Americans that I'd never seen the likes of it in Washington, D.C. before.
It's great to have a lot of people on the mall, but if you write a piece of legislation or make a move of concession in budget negotiations that results in something happening that's as visibly chaotic or incompetent as the current government response to the Gulf oil spill, you can pay a political price.
The first test that I observed their practical mindedness was the New Jersey governor's race. In New Jersey, they had the perfect conservative, the barely conservative, and the awful liberal. And the perfect conservative was polling at 5, 6, 7% a week out, enough to throw the race to the liberal. On election day, he got about 1 or 2% of the vote. The conservative, yeah, now he's 80% with us. We got rid of 100% bad, got 80% good. We saw 180% turnaround. And then we said, across the country, we said, this is good.